Hi everybody, my name is Christine Gillespie and I'm the Retail and Tourism Manager at Historic Huguenot Street. I hope you have all been doing well and staying healthy, and I also personally wanted to thank each one of you for tuning in each week to see what we have to offer in our museum shop. I hope that you've been enjoying our choices of books and activities, and stick around each week to see what we'll be talking about next. This week we're actually going to be looking at the Images of America series New Paltz book. This is the first edition. There's also a second edition, which I will be talking about next week. And this is by Carol Johnson and Marion Ryan. Culture and history is as rich as ever in New Paltz, New York. With many direct descendants of its original settlers still in the area, this majestic town has turned into a stable, prosperous community. This book wants readers to reflect on the times of our past that led to growth and change to create the town that exists today. With landmarks such as the Mohonk Mountain House, Huguenot Street, and the SUNY New Paltz campus, there are plenty of images and documents to fascinate all readers within these pages. So I wanted to start and show you guys the table of contents. You can see each section is divided up based on the town's history and as it evolves. I like this book because not only does it have our specific local history in it in New Paltz, it's a really great souvenir text. You don't have to be a descendant of New Paltz to enjoy this book. It's really a great read for anybody. With all of the pictures and documents inside, it's really neat and breaks up the text. It's not going to be a very academic and slow read, which is a nice change every once in a while. So I wanted to start off with our introduction, and in the book we have a map of the town of New Paltz in 1875. And you can see here, it's the town of New Paltz. And from the introduction it says, "A small group of French Huguenot refugees chose well when they settled the fertile Wallkill River Valley site that became the town of New Paltz. Local resident Isaac Lefevre describes the town over a century later in a document prepared for the Surveyor General, dated January 25, 1798. The following excerpts from a section titled Remarks and Observations have been selected and edited for clarity. And I'm just going to read a brief section from this document. This town retains its original name since the first settlement, which was by 8 families of French extraction, and was first settled a few years before the grant for their patent, which was in the year 1677. It's pleasantly situated on the west bank of the Hudson River, with convenient landing places and good roads through the same." So it's nice to note that in 1798, even the townspeople of New Paltz thought they had something unique and special by calling this land still their home. The first image that I wanted to start out with today is one that a lot of local people may have seen or may not have seen. It's the Deo House on Huguenot Street, pre-renovation. So you can see here it's pre-renovation, but you can see the start of electricity is coming through. This is the original front of the home, which still exists today on the outside with the stonework. And then if you go over here, this is now where the main entrance to the home is, where the porte-cochere and the driveway, and then up again through the second story is what the home looks like now. So the passage says, "The Pierre Deo House, patentee, 1692, New Paltz, New York. Pierre Deo built the first stone house on Huguenot Street in 1692. Like the other houses on the street, it was built in the rural Flemish style using native limestone held in place with puddled clay. Remodeled in 1894 by Dale's fifth great-grandson, Abraham Dale Broadhead, the modest 1.5-story homestead was enlarged and transformed into a rather grand Victorian home. Now, if you've been to Huguenot Street before, you know that this transition of this renovation home was what sparked the very first historical society to begin. So I thought that was a really neat photograph to start with, because that's kind of the reason why all of our staff and myself are here talking to you today. On the same note with the Dale Broadhead family and their renovation, they had a profitable business in New Paltz. It was technically a gambling park where you could bet on horse racing and racing. They had the Broadhead Driving Park, and this is a photograph of one of the stands that was in existence before it was torn down and removed. So you can see this image right here. Oof. Right here. That is one of the stands that I just mentioned, which was removed and then moved to a different property, which I thought was pretty cool that they kept it intact and didn't just plow it down and get rid of it and repurpose the wood. But the caption says, "For 16 years, judges sat in an elevated stand calling finishes at Broadhead Driving Park, a half-mile racetrack complex located west of Springtown Road near Mountain Rest Road. When the popular but controversial enterprise failed in 1904, the buildings were dismantled and hauled away. The pointed roof structure, once the top half of the judge's stand, is now a storage shed on a small nearby farm." So, like I mentioned, this was the business of Abraham Dale Broadhead, and eventually, when they did close this driving park down, it led to the financial downfall of him and his family. The next image that I would like to show you guys is the first New Paltz school building, which today is home to Scarborough Fair on North Front Street. This prior to that has been a number of different businesses, but it's really neat that it's still in existence today and that you can go by and see. There's also a plaque that exists there that you can see on the bottom here. Oof. That when you go to the building, it's easy to spot, and you can stop and take a look at this marker. So the caption underneath the image says, "Erected in 1812, this building at 15 North Front Street served as the first public or common school until 1874. Stones set aside 39 years earlier for the specific purpose of building a schoolhouse were finally used to construct the first floor. The building has also been a blacksmith shop, a private residence, and recently commercial space. Longtime resident Nicholas Manolakis sits on his front porch in this 1984 photograph." And then the marker down here says, "The first New Paltz school. For 62 years, this building, constructed of stone from the 717 stone church on Huguenot Street, served as the earliest public school, and in 1828 also housed the classical school, a forerunner of the New Paltz College." So, for those of you who don't know, it mentions the 1717 stone church on Huguenot Street. That was the first stone structure that existed on our specific site where our burial ground is now, and when the congregation grew, that church was taken down and the stones from that were saved specifically for the schoolhouse. So it's neat that even though you can't see the exact 1717 stone church, you can go and see the stones that were from the structure, but you can also go to our site and see the replica building that we have on site now, which was funded and provided to us by the Crispell Family Association. So that's a neat stop to check out if you're walking around town and walking around the site. That's where the 1717 church existed. So the next image that I wanted to show you guys, which I always find really interesting when I'm flipping through these books, is the different types of clothing and dress styles that were in fashion over history. And I came across a photograph of two women who were attending the normal school, and what they wore as their I guess what you would consider PE clothes. They're lounging clothes, physical activity outfit, and this was what they would be calling a gymnastic suit. So you can see here we have Mary Alice Niver and a friend. They're modeling their gymnastic suits for us. You can see this image is their PE wear, and then also the next image over in their normal school uniforms, which were much more proper and prim. So the caption underneath says, normal school women were expected to wear dress appropriate for exercises when gathering in the large gymnasium. Either a gymnastic suit or an ordinary dress with a blouse waist. Material and color were left up to the individual, but dark blue flannel was recommended, as were shoes without heels. So Mary Alice Niver, she's in both photographs, and her friend pose in their 1897 graduation photo. So that fancy normal school uniform photo, that's their graduation photo. So you can see the difference between the two outfits, and thinking about that now as a woman, I don't think I would want to be running around and doing physical activity in a dress, but it's interesting to see what was the normal at the time. The next photo I wanted to show you guys is one of the staples on Main Street, and it does definitely look different now, but I'm sure as you're driving through town you'll be able to spot it over by Wells Fargo and the Karma Road restaurant. So if you look here, this building, as it exists today, is now some apartments, but you can see when this photo was taken, it was a much bigger, more extravagant looking building that was home to a business, but now it's different apartments and things, very different style. But the image text says, for a brief period before 1900, New Paltz had a reputation as a risque carnival town. The racetrack on the flats drew large betting crowds. Local sportsmen rubbed shoulders with Astors, Vanderbilts, Morgans, and Goulds at this Main Street address. All signed their names in the hotel guest register. By the time George Palmer owned the business in 1920s, it no longer attracted the wealthy, horsey clientele. So it was a hotel when the driving park was still in use, and I just find it interesting that New Paltz had a risque reputation as a carnival town. I just thought that was really funny and it struck out to me. So I wanted to show you guys this image. So if next time you're driving down Main Street, take a look and see if you can find this building. One of the more prominent figures that we talk about on our tours and at a lot of our programs and events on Huguenot Street is Sojourner Truth. She is an amazing woman, and we've focused a lot of our digital programming around her as well during this time. But I did find a photograph from when her commemorative stamp was issued and came out for the Black Heritage series. So I wanted to show you guys this image down here. This is when the stamp was issued, and it's at the Sojourner Truth Library. It says, the Sojourner Truth Library on campus hosted the prestigious first day of issue ceremony for the Sojourner Truth Black Heritage Series stamp. The stamp design memorializes the former slave who became one of the leading crusaders for human rights during the Civil War. Sojourner Truth spent much of her early life in the New Paltz patent. New Paltz Postmaster Lillian Hall Davis speaks at the February 4th, 1986 event. So I thought that was interesting, that it was really neat that they did that on campus in the library for her, and the stamp still exists today as part of the Black Heritage series. So I wanted to end with this last kind of iconic image that we all know and love. This is the view of the ridge. Beautiful photograph here. And to many people, this view and image brings back a lot of fond memories, and it's very iconic for people from the area and from New Paltz, and it means a lot to them when they are returning to the area to see that kind of skyline when they're pulling through town, when they haven't been there in a long time. So I wanted to show that and hope that it inspires you guys to think of New Paltz, whether or not you live there or you've been there and have a history to it. Just wanted to give you some warm, fuzzy feelings to help you through what we're going through right now. The text underneath the photo says, in 1887, Philip H. Smith wrote in Legends of the Shawangunk, "The Shawangunk is a vast amphitheater of rocks piled into the most fantastic shapes, with forests covering its crests and slopes and sporting the exuberance of nature's own flower garden. Here the arbutus, the azalea, and the laurel successfully clothe the sides of the vernal beauty. The summit overlooks the valleys of the Rondout and Wallkill, beautiful as paradise, where lie the great grazing and dairy farms of worldwide celebrity, while eastward can be traced the valley of Hudson. From these airy heights, mountain views may be seen such as will strike the beholder with astonishment." So, thank you guys so much for tuning in with me today. If you want your own copy of Images of America New Paltz, it will be available starting today with a 10% discount on our online shop. It is one of our bestsellers. I highly recommend this book to you, whether or not you're from New Paltz or you have a connection. It's just a great informational read. And I hope that you guys can tune in with me next week to see the second version, New Paltz Revisited. Until then, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.